I appreciate y'all. Thank you. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your appreciation of me, because I definitely appreciate you. And I don't want you to think, I want you to be secure that I just don't say, I thank you, I love you, I appreciate you, and I hope you have an awesome day just because it's really quick to something to say and it's like a filler, because it's not. Because I do love you, and I do appreciate you, and I do hope you have an amazing day, and your vibrations are high, and your energy is high, and that you glow, and people are like, what's different about you today? And you're like, nothing, I'm happy. Did you cut your hair? No, I'm happy. I just appreciate you guys, and I thank you so very much. Really quickly, during the event, I put together a presentation, the Boston Business Builders Second Annual Educate to Elevate the History of Black Businesses. And one of the things that I learned is there is not one place, not for the city, not for the state, not for the United States of America, is there one place where all of the history of Black businesses is compiled. There's nowhere. I did so much research, and there was no one place where Black history on businesses reside. Really quickly, I'm going to go through the slides. It's about 10 slides. Slave codes were entered into society back in the late 1700s. They have been entered into the law books in most of the American colonies. Black slaves were not legally permitted to own property or businesses. Under these early codes, slaves had virtually no legal rights. In most areas, they could be executed for crimes that were not capital offenses for whites. Their testimony was restricted in legal cases and could not be used either for or against whites. Trials of slaves were usually by special courts. Slaves never could own property or move without the consent of their owner or even legally marry. Freedom, not exactly. After 20 generations of slavery, families were strong, marriages were strong, and both slave and free seized every opportunity to participate in establishing and maintaining thriving businesses. There was a timeline that I found. There was like 2-3 different timelines that I went ahead and pieced together. This is not my own work. I have to attribute this work. I have the website if you want the website. In 1857, the Supreme Court ruled that the Dred Scott here in Massachusetts, 1857, thank you to Sabir Bay, Dred Scott case, deciding that an African American could not be a citizen of the United States and thus had no rights of citizenship. If you go back in history, if you take a look at the Constitution, 1857, the Dred Scott case still applies today. You Black American, you are not a citizen. Tayla, you are speaking blasphemous. I am a citizen. I get to vote. I get to do this. I get to do that. This is why they are shooting our men and our women down like dogs. 1857, do your due diligence. The Dred Scott case here in Massachusetts. Massachusetts decided that an African American could not be a citizen of the United States and thus had no rights of citizenship. Don't believe me? Go read. 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president. 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation, as well as the 54th Regiment. 1865, Congress approves the 13th Amendment. You guys saw that documentary on Netflix. That's today's documentary for the 18 kids that are at my house right now. Slavery would be outlawed. Congress established the Freedmen's Bureau to provide health care, education, and technical assistance to emancipated slaves. Did you guys know that about the Freedmen's Bureau? In 1866, the Civil Rights Act, the original Civil Rights Act, not the Civil Rights Act of your grandmama's day, but in 1866 was the original Civil Rights Act and the founding of the KKK. In 1867, Reconstruction begins. I never understood how, during Reconstruction, 1867, how during this period, we had senators, we had congressmen, we had elected officials, we had cities, we had towns, we had safe havens for us to go and, live productive lives, not being slaves. And I never, as far as history was concerned, as far as the timeline of the African American or the black man, I never understood, how were there, debutante balls and, prissy, beautiful black businesses thriving, but yet they were still slaves. So the Reconstruction Act 1867, we go on, an act to prevent all persons from teaching slaves to read or write, the use of figures accepted, like drawing, and I'll read this really quickly. Be it enacted by the General Assembly of the State of North Carolina, and it is hereby enacted by the authority of the same, that any free person who shall hereafter teach or attempt to teach any slave within the state to read or write, the use of figures accepted, like drawings, shall give or sell such a slave or give or sell to such a slave any books or pamphlets shall be liable to indictment in any court of record in the state having jurisdiction thereof. And this was in 1831. 1831. So what is that? 230 years? Is how long, for 230 years, this is how long we could read. Just think. Fort Muse. Have you guys ever heard of Fort Muse? I asked for everyone to raise their hand. There were 2 people in the entire room that knew about Fort Muse. It's hidden away in the marshes of St. Augusta, Florida. It is one of the most important sites in American history. The first free community of ex-slaves, founded in 1738. Now, remember 1738, right? Let's go back to the 1857 Supreme Court rules Dred Scott case deciding African Americans could not be citizens. 1863 Emancipation Proclamation, 54th Regiment. 1865 Congress approved the 13th Amendment. Slavery would be outlawed, but your ass can go to jail, will go to jail, and still be a slave. 1866 the original Civil Rights Act and the founding of the KKK. 1867, the Reconstruction begins, but yet Fort Muse in 1738, it was originally called Gracia Real de Santa Teresa de Mose or Fort Muse. More than a century before the Emancipation Proclamation, slaves from the British colonies were able to follow the original Underground Railroad. I asked how many people knew about the Underground Railroad. The shout out to Moss number 11. They were in the building, only one person, or 2 people, because T. Michael Thomas also knew about it. So 2 people knew about it. The original Underground Railroad, which headed not to the north, but rather to the south, to the Spanish colony of Florida. They were given their freedom. They decided their alliance to the King of Spain, and they joined the Catholic Church. Approximately 100 Africans lived at Fort Muse, forming more than 20 households. Little to no facts, the achievement of black businesses throughout the 1600s, slavery, Reconstruction, segregation, and even today are not commonly known facts. Do you know when I contacted the city of Boston to put on the Boston Business Builder, the city told me they have no facts regarding black businesses. What they do have is they have facts on minority-owned businesses, but white women are still considered a minority. Also, they had numbers for immigrant-owned businesses, but Asians are immigrants. Russians are immigrants. Italians are immigrants. So if there is not one place, I say this again, not just for me, but for yourself as well, there is not one place in the city of Boston, in the state of Massachusetts, or in the United States of America where you can find commonly known facts or statistics about black businesses at all. Go back to Dred Scott, because yo behind still ain't no damn citizen. Still, the informational gap exists with regard to factors that have economically disenfranchised people of color, aka we don't know how wealthy we could be. We don't know how much money we lost during slavery. We don't know how much money was lost during the Tulsa, Oklahoma riots. We don't know how much money was lost during Rosewood. We don't know how much of that money is gone. We don't know how much of those monies could have generated billions, trillions of dollars into today's corporations. When you look at some of the businesses that were in existence early 1800s, early 1900s, that are still in existence today, they succeeded off the backs of slaves. They succeeded off the backs of black men and women and children. What are they doing to give back to the community? AKA, we lost money being slaves, and we never started on a level playing field. Gathering information from the city was non-existent. Did you know that the dry cleaner was invented in 1821 by a black man named Thomas Jennings? Thomas Jennings owned a dry cleaning business in New York City and was the first black man in the United States of America to be granted a patent. Thousands of inventions were made by blacks prior to the Civil War because we were sick and tired of doing all the work, all the hard work, breaking our back. We had to find easier ways to do things. So as we found easier ways to do things, we didn't get credit. We didn't get paid. There was no multiple generational businesses telling black people that, yes, you did this. Still to this day, when we have Black History Month and our children are learning about our elders and our ancestors and those that came before us, they're not learning about the multiple inventions that America could not run today without us. Though many inventions were stolen, still thousands of patents were claimed and granted by blacks after 1821. 1898 through 1930. So about 32 years, 1898 to 1930, black businesses grew from 1,900 to 70,000. This figure is still more accurate than the numbers that we have today on black and Latino businesses. Black leaders urged the black community to focus on business and real estate and not protesting segregation, not protesting the wrongs of that who has no love for you. Not protesting in the streets about what's going on, but to focus on business and real estate. I thought we were going to roll through this quickly, but I forgot how passionate I was. Savings Bank of the Grand Fountain United Order of Reformers in Richmond, Virginia, as well as Capital Savings Bank of Washington, D.C. During this time in history, the black dollar circulated our black community 36 to 100 times before leaving the community. 36 to 100 times. I want you to say with me, how many times does the black dollar circulate today? Damn near none, and only 6 hours does it remain. When we used to circulate it 36 to 100 times. 36 to 100 times that dollar used to circulate. That means if I gave my money to Tom, Tom gave his money to Harry, Harry gave his money to Dick, Dick gave his money to Tyrone, Tyrone gave his money to Terry, Terry gave his money to Tiffany, Tiffany gave her money to Tyra, and this went on 36 to 100 times before it left Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan. This was back in 1889, in the 1900s. There's a beautiful, beautiful picture of the National Negro Business League, their executive committee of the National Negro Business League. Go do your due diligence, baby. Look it up. Read it for yourself. Don't believe me ever. Don't believe anything I ever tell you. Go do your due diligence and Think for yourself. Believe for yourself. See for yourself. Don't take my word as bond. Never. And not because I'm not right, but because I want you to do your own due diligence so you can speak with confidence, so you can know exactly from your perspective what I'm saying to be true, and for you to be able to regurgitate it the way that you learned it. An educator, black educator by the name of Booker T. Washington, 1857 through 1915 is where his lifespan. He founded the National Negro Business League. It originally was housed at Tuskegee. It had 320 chapters in 1905. Shout out to the Divine Nine. And more than 600 chapters in 34 states in 10 years later. They went from 320 chapters to 600 chapters in 34 different states in 10 years. Washington believed that solutions to the problem of racial discrimination were primarily economic, and that bringing African Americans into the middle class was key. He was the original DJ Khaled. To promote the commercial and financial development of the Negro at the bottom of education, at the bottom of politics, even at the bottom of religion itself, there must be for our race, as for all races, an economic foundation, economic prosperity, economic independence to promote commercial, agricultural, educational, and industrial advancement. In the commercial and financial development of the Negro, Washington believed that blacks should leave political and civil rights alone in order to make a businessman of the Negro. There's a beautiful picture of There's a beautiful picture of the bank did very well when the U.S. Economic depression of 1893 hit. The people were panicking and rushing to banks to withdraw their money. Brown's Bank was one of the few that survived. In fact, it was the only bank in Richmond that was able to pay out the full value of its customers' accounts and still remain in operation. It was the only one that could pay out. And this is in Virginia. I can imagine that they probably haven't looked at all of America, but in Richmond, Virginia, all of Virginia, it was the only bank to pay full value of all of its customers' accounts that wanted to close it while remaining in operation. Allensworth in Florida, it was founded in 1908. Again, this was Divine Nine time where everybody put their energies, their resources together, work together. 1908, founded Allensworth in California, the only town in the state to be founded, financed, and governed by African Americans. Anari wanted to speak on the mic, and he told me that there was another town in Florida that was owned, operated, funded, financed, and governed by African Americans. And every state was different and had their own town where this took place, where they funded, financed, and took care of self. Another timeline. In 1901, the last African American congressman was elected for 28 years. Like, it took 28 years for another African American congressman to be elected. 105 blacks were lynched in 1901. In 1908, Thurgood Marshall was born, and 89 blacks were lynched. In 1909, the NAACP was formed. Admiral Perry and African-American Matthew Henson and 4 Eskimos became the first men on the North Pole. 69 blacks were lynched. In 1911, the National Urban League is formed. In 1913, Jubilee, the 50th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, Harriet Tubman dies and federal segregation went into full effect. Federal segregation in 1913. 51 blacks were lynched. And again, I want to remind you that these numbers of who was lynched is by, what they actually said this to be true. This is not like rural town in the middle of backwoods somewhere. We don't really subscribe to the census. We don't really talk about what goes on down here. just silence. These are the numbers of the people that we actually know had their lives taken. 1917, World War I takes place. 370,000 African Americans were in military service. None of them got GI Bills. None of them got houses on the hills. None of our granddaddies and grandmamas that were part of the military service got anything for their service during their time. The bloodiest race riot in St. Louis, Illinois, 40 to 200 people were killed. How the hell do you have a number that could be, see, I'm not, as far as numbers are concerned, I don't know what the percentage is, but from 40 to 200 people were killed. 6,000 people were driven away from their houses in St. Louis, Illinois. The NAACP protested in Manhattan, protested lynchings, protested race riots, protested the denial of rights. In 1920 is the rise of Marcus Garvey. This is probably one of my favorite slides in the whole presentation. The C.R. Patterson and Son Carriage Company of Greenfield, Ohio, became the nation's first and only African-American founded and owned automobile manufacturing company. The company began as a manufacturer of horse and carriage and ended up as a manufacturer of buses for both urban transportation systems and rural school needs. Frederick Patterson, there's a picture with him and his prototype of the Patterson Greenfield automobile, the first and only in the United States of America. And I say in the United States of America because in Uganda, there is a gentleman that created a vehicle. I don't know if you guys remember, it was like 2 years ago, I read the story about the gentleman in, I believe it's Uganda, it could be Nigeria, he's in Africa, and he created his own car line. He created his own automobiles to withstand sand and dirt and the bumpy roads of the non-paved roads in his country. And he went ahead and gave them to the police officers. C.R. Patterson and Son, the prototype of Patterson Greenfield. Do your due diligence, baby. You ain't got to take my word for it. In the city of Boston, minority-owned businesses comprise 35% of the 40,000 small businesses, but only earning 14% of the generated $15 billion. Minority businesses still lack resources needed. Minority-owned businesses have lower average rates of revenue and employment growth than the average small business in the city. Last but not least, Black-owned businesses' earnings from 2012 to 2007. One of the things that I noticed in 2007, we did over $520 billion in information. In 2012, we did $2 billion in information. How did we go from 20 billion to 2? Information, media, information, talking to the people, getting the knowledge out. These are old facts and figures. I haven't been able to find anything that's not older than 5 years. Also, agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting. In 2007, we did $13 billion. In 2012, we did $233,000. I say all of that to say we need to take back agriculture. Who else would have grown? When Professor Devin Robinson was here, and he was just like, there's 3 stages of, development. The U.S. is the superpower it is today because of these 3 stages. First, we needed agriculture. We needed somebody to go ahead and pull them crops. How many small farms do we have? How many farms do we own at all? No, we are buying from Monsanto. They have genetically modified seeds that the seeds produce fruits and vegetables that have lower nutritional rates. So, Taylor, that's not true. Study said blase, 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 blah. I'm saying common sense told me, because being in college, learning about statistics, I learned you can skew any data to make your theory correct. You don't believe me? Go Google it. You can skew any data to make your theory correct. Common sense, and my uncle, who is a farmer, told me that those genetically modified seeds, when you change the genetics of a fruit and vegetable and you are pulling things out of it, when you pull those seeds out, those watermelons, you're taking away vital vitamins, nutrients that would have been in that plant. How is it an organic watermelon and it has no seeds? Baby, how you gonna give me an oxymoron and lie to me? I didn't realize what time is it. I'm sorry. We on the soapbox right now, baby. Really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and cater to our guest. Get him set up in the building. Big City 101.3 FM. Waking Up with TaylaAndre. Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 7. Whew. Woosah. When I tell you I love you, I mean it. When I tell you I appreciate you, it's because I do. And I hope you have an amazing day. Keep your vibrations high. Big City 101.3 FM. Waking Up with TaylaAndre. We'll be right back. Come on, let's go get our guest. YouTube, we'll be back. I'm just reading some of the comments while we go get our guest. Let's draw me, hey, Roger, you know me, where you know me,
What's in my pores by now?
have a seat, stand up, whatever makes you feel comfortable. We have 1 minute and 40 seconds. So what I just did was I went through the slides from the event on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys, the last slide, I'll read it for you. The most important skill for any black child in America to have is the ability to create his own job. That was Dr. Boyce Watkins. Booker T. Washington. To repeat, I closed out my portion of the event by saying at the bottom of education, at the bottom of politics, even at the bottom of religion itself, there must be for our race, as for all races, an economic foundation, economic prosperity, economic independence to promote commercial, agricultural, educational, and industrial advancement and the commercial and financial development of the Negro. Washington believed that blacks should leave political and civil rights alone, get your ass out the damn street in order to make the businessman out of the Negro. In order for us to work together, in order for us to do the right thing, in order for us to change our situation, we need to be businessmen and women. Fuck rioting in the streets. Fuck assembly in the streets. Get your shit together and open a damn business. Go talk to whoever. If you don't like Devin Robinson, you don't like Tracy, Sci-Fax is perfectly fine. You don't have to go seek them out. But definitely go seek out somebody. Go seek out somebody that can teach you about business. Go seek out somebody, Monica Cross, to help you build your business.
At 7 a.m. on Big City 101.
I don't have a bio for you. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine.
How are we going to introduce you?
Well, there's a bio on the website.
Unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. This is the type of stuff I'm into, right? Make sure you tune in. Let's go.
Training.
What's going on, y'all? It's your girl, Lady Luck, and you are now tuned in to Big City, right here on 101.3, with my homegirl, my buddy, my friend, TaylaAndre, Boston's #1 talk show. Keep it locked.
And hopefully you're still keeping it locked. We just took a really quick break. We went to go ahead and get our guest settled and situated, and he's in the building. The microphone still ain't on his lip, though, but he gonna get it together, right?
Right here?
Yeah, put it on your lip. You don't need headphones. You want to know why you don't need headphones?
Why is that?
Because we allow Facebook and YouTube to listen as well. So typically we would have we would use the headphones, but we let everything come in studio so that YouTube and Facebook can listen as well. If you just want to hear the sound of your voice, you can definitely put them on, though.
No, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Peace and blessings. How are you?
Very well, Tayla. How about you?
I'm super fantastic. For people who don't know the voice, this is the founder and lead organizer. Oh, wow.
Organizer. I love it.
You love it, huh?
Let's throw that in the lexicon.
Lead organizer of Know Thyself training. Octavius. I can say you the full name? How they know you? How they know you?
Salih is how most people.
Most people know you as Salih. I don't know why you don't have your own show, Salih.
I know, right? I was signed at one point. No, I'm lying. No, I think I would leave that to much more capable individuals such as yourself who have that gift of communication. Sometimes I get in my feelings.
I'm sorry, do you listen to the show?
Yes,
do you listen to the show? I definitely be in my feelings every day.
And become extremely polarizing. So, not the best model for a conversation or a platform for people to express more than one kind of view. I get pretty myopic and focused at times.
You haven't listened to the show, huh?
I do. You know, I definitely checked out the other day. My little brother Noah was in here. Shout out to my little brother Noah. Super proud of that. Super proud of that brother. I keep wanting to call him a kid. He's not a kid. He's a grown man, and he is again focused and I've watched his evolution and his matriculation from one level to the next, and he continues to impress. So big up to my man Noah.
Big up to Noah of New York Life Insurance. He was in here talking about finance, talking about insurance, talking about investments, something that we don't have conversations regularly about. And I love the fact that you wanted to call him a kid, so that means you kind of watched him grow up a little bit.
I did.
So you are the OG.
I am, but at the same time, I started young. So I'm not like super older than a lot of these cats, but particularly like the difference between the people who I looked up to and then the people who I feel look up to me. I will let Noah express that, but I started young. The people who felt as though their time was winding down, Tayla, used their gift of foresight to pick young lions that were around them and pretty much throw us into the fire. And, hey, sink or swim, because it's not really up to you so much. I see that going away. I'm trying to bring that back. The not waiting for someone to take the torch. We're shoving the torches on people. And one of the things, big up to my brother, Dr. Umar Johnson, who he and I had a conversation one time, and how he talked about his evolution and how his gifts started to become evident, and the older leaders around him were reluctant to pass on that torch. Why? Because they were used to the shine, and they knew that attention was what made them relevant. Even in the midst of someone like Dr. Umar Johnson, was still reluctant to give it up. I'm not. I'm ready to bring on the next crop, because our people are in trouble. So it can't.
What does that mean to you? Our people are in trouble.
Well, I understand that we live in a system of racism, white supremacy. And I understand the objective of the system is not so much genocide. I know that's the popular tripe, if you will, not to put a negative connotation on it. But the goal of racism, white supremacy, as postulated by Neely Fuller Jr. and, of course, our esteemed elder, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, rest in power, said that the goal of the racism, white supremacy is the attrition of black people, or people who classify themselves as black, to the point of perpetual subjugation. What does that mean? That means that our numbers physically will dwindle to the point where we don't even think about black independence again. We don't ever think about nationhood for ourselves again, and be able to dictate the course of our own journey. So
all right, devil's advocate. Why would blacks need a nationhood when they're in a nation? Aren't they Americans? Aren't they proud to be American? If that's not the case, go back to Africa. Like, shouldn't you be proud to live in a country where you're free and you get all these resources and food stamps and we taking care of you? What you complaining for?
Yeah, high regard is a two-way street. So we can regard America one way, in high regard, all we like, but that should be reciprocated. Or in fact, that should be offered first, and we should be the ones reciprocating. There is no point in time where I feel like that ethic has been really ingrained in America's behavior. Again, well, not again because we haven't talked about this, but this is something I say regularly as in terms of love. I gave you a T-shirt. Says a bold statement that says, "I love black people." Then we have to go into, well, what is love? And one of the most pontificated upon subjects ever, and many different, there it is. Get yours, www.knowthyselftraining.com. Go ahead and get one, y'all.
So I just pulled out the T-shirt. It's a dope T-shirt. It's 100% cotton. Feels good. Looks good. Doesn't look like it's gonna shrink or mess up.
Hugs your body.
After 2 washes, it's a great quality. I love black people with a heart on it.
You like quality, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, sis.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So the reciprocation of love and the definition of love. Many people have many definitions, but I don't think anybody can deny that love ultimately is what you do, not what you profess. So America has to show black people that it loves us, like we have shown America time and time again that we love it, to a measurement that we determine. America, you don't tell us what love is. We will tell you when we feel sufficiently loved. And it has to be at least in the same ballpark as the love that we've shown you.
We do show you love. Look at all your people on food stamps and on housing assistance and on health insurance. Like, we give you all these resources and you sucking up all our money. And what else do you want for love?
Well, power doesn't come from someone else. Power is self-manifested. So, for all the things that we've sacrificed for this inclusive hallmark that America has promoted since its existence, since its inception, now it's time for America. It's always our resources, black people's resources, that are in question. Our love is in question. Well, listen, we've bent over backwards showing America how much we love it. Again, time for America to show. Past time for America to show.
What is Know Thyself training? What is that?
Yes, ma'am. Well, as the name would imply, we're focused on ourselves, black people. There are certain things that if we look at the condition of black people, we can't say that we are living civilized. We can't say that we're living a lifestyle that is conducive to perpetuation in a way, in a condition that we can be comfortable with. We've been in a state of crisis for as long as I can remember, and beyond that, through study and research. Know thyself, to come out of that decrepit, torrid, dire condition, living the life of a beast. Knowledge of self must be obtained first. You just did a wonderful economic summit where a lot of different corners of not just the community, but really of the country were sharing their expertise in how to build wealth and how to build revenue streams that are self-sufficient and can be maintained. Respectfully, I think the step before that is, before economic empowerment, is proper education through knowledge of self. Know thyself is a program that myself and others have constructed that is laser focused on the emboldening of one thing that I feel like we need more than anything else, and that's black manhood. Something that we have been bereft of, that has been a focus of our enemies to take away from us, and we've allowed it.
For some reason, I feel like the word castrated was like somewhere in your vocabulary.
Well, that's very interesting. In parts of the first two sessions, we're in our fourth week now. Know thyself. The training itself goes for 9 weeks. We will end on July 29th. We're going into our fifth week. Castration, the history of castration, the psychology, Tayla, of castration. We broke all that down. There are things that we're sharing with these boys, that we are proving to these young lions that they've never heard before, and no one really. I think the likelihood of anyone broaching these subjects with these young lions is low. So we have to take it upon ourselves. We just find it too important. There are things in this educational paradigm in America that these boys are subject to that are just patently false, patent lies. And it's not just, hey, these things are just lies and they'll get over it. They'll find out sooner than later. I mean, how many times have you, through your journey through life, found compelling information that contradicted something that you were told in school for how many years?
James exactly. Lowen, Lies My Teacher Told.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, ma'am. Excellent book. Excellent resource. So we're not waiting anymore for these young lions to find this information on their own, like so many of us did. We're bringing it right to them. Right
so,
where they live.
Know Thyself training
Yes,
has been in existence for how long? And can you take us through some of the modules that you take these young lions through over the course of 9 weeks?
Absolutely. So this is 2017 going into 18. So we started in 2015. Mm-hmm. This is our third iteration. We had to skip a summer or two, as I'm a Boston firefighter, for people that may not know, and for a couple of summers I was studying for the lieutenant's exam. So I did pass. So,
yes!
So hopefully that will be happening very soon.
Well, peace and blessings when two or more touch and agree. Can we touch on it? Yes.
Thank you. So now I'm bound to make it now. But in between those non-study years, and I have been active in the community
for years, decades,
for doing a whole bunch of things. I just came into a space, Tayla, where I was just like, I'm pretty much through with adults. Mm-hmm. I felt like I needed to focus on the young ones because of their more malleable perspectives. Not that we wanted to control them or program them. We wanted to deprogram. We wanted to detoxify them because we all agree, those of us involved in the construction of about to say something else that I used to do, of Know Thyself. We knew that this information was absolutely to their detriment. Some of the modules, so 2015 we started. Some of the modules for the 9 weeks, I'll go through them all. The definition of racism, white supremacy was week 1. Again, as postulated by Dr. Neely Fuller and Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, 2 people who I feel, even though they weren't the first ones to try to corner the definition of racism. And when you talk to people, most times, Taylor, when they talk about racism or what is racist, they can't really define it. They'll go to Webster's or they'll go to Wikipedia. But we know definitions that are found in dictionaries and such are not the final arbiter.
So what is it? What do you tell those young men? What is the definition of racism, white supremacy?
In short form, the racism, white supremacy is a power dynamic. It's a system predicated on a power dynamic from those who classify themselves as white to those who classify themselves as non-white, anything but white, but particularly black people, particularly people who classify themselves as black. This does away with the misnomer, the misconception that anybody, universal racism, that anybody can be racist. That's not true. Again, you have to have the power to detrimentally affect those people's lives as a group, as Dr. Joy DeGruy, the author of Post-Traumatic Slavery Syndrome, has been on the forefront of saying for years.
And that book will change your life.
Absolutely.
If you have not read that book and you are just now coming into knowledge and knowledge of self, you read that book and I promise you, you will go back and question all of your professors, all of your teachers, because that's how I felt after reading her book. I was just like, why on earth am I in debt $60,000 for an education? And this was never anything that was even discussed.
Yes, and that's something else that we really need to tackle, Taylor. You hit the nail on the head, really, is that the thought that miseducation only happens pre-college, university level. No, there are in fact, that's where the lies are solidified. In college, when you think that you're in quote-unquote higher education, no, when all they're doing is patting the dirt on your grave, on your educational grave, on your ability to analyze and evaluate and vet information for yourself. These children aren't being taught to be analytical. They're being taught to regurgitate, absorb, and regurgitate. So, racism.
Week 1.
Well, that's week 1. Week 2. Hey, something I know is a subject near and dear to your heart, and also should be for our people: the relationship between the black man and black woman, and the construction of the black family. We encourage, in fact, we dissuade our young lions from making any other choice besides black women. No other choice to build families with.
What about a Latina? What about a Cape Verdean?
We consider
a Dominican.
Well, and we go into the race to the definition of black. If someone has the genetic material, we have about 4 or 5 aspect points of someone who may identify as black. If you self-identify as black, you have the genetic material to make that claim, and then you're working among our people in positive flux. You're not
Rachel
a traitor.
Dozo.
What's that?
Rachel Dozo.
No, ma'am. She can identify all she wants. She doesn't have the genetic material. And now, because of her, she's confused all kinds of ways. Let's just say that. She's not only confused about her role as a part of an ethnicity, but part of a gender now. So that's
I'm sorry. Did she have a sex change?
Oh no, she identifies as homosexual now.
Side eye. Okay.
Yeah. She identifies as bisexual, which I don't recognize your bisexuals or homosexuals. She identifies as bisexual.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So week 1.
Week 1.
Racism and white supremacy. Week 2. Love your black queen.
Love your black queen. But again, and we ain't just getting down on our knees praising black women. We are, again, analyzing and vetting some of the things that black women have misstepped in, as well as in terms of how she relates to us. So that the young lions have a full, holistic view of how to relate to the sisters.
Do you guys at any point talk about angry black women? And why there's a possibility they may be stereotyped in that light?
Sure. Yes, we do. It's not a staple because again, we're working on us. Mm-hmm. There are some sisters that I know that are working on a program for the sisters.
Thyself female version.
Yes, ma'am. Black Girls Rising. So I will, and they will be a great guest to have a conversation about that. I will leave that up to the sisters to work on the sisters in that regard. Yes, we do talk about our failure, the black man's failure, and the results of that, and how that manifests in our sisters that perpetuate this problem. Anger, of course, being one of them. But we have to take culpability in our role in producing that because of, again, our failure, our neglect, and our traitorous action to our people. Now, we've done much damage to the black woman, and we need to take responsibility in that, in our part. We'll let the sisters handle the other side.
So do you, during second week, do you also discuss, while loving black women, you don't want to go out there and love multiple at the same time?
Yes, ma'am. We talk about the responsibility of, listen, to truth. And part of the definition of what is love, not just action, but truthful action. We have to recognize that, truth is love, right? So if the educational paradigm controlled by the dominant society, i.e. white folks, have been lying to us for all this time, and the opposite of truth and lying, and the opposite of love is either hatred or at least apathy, then how do these people feel about you? And who should you trust? So, yes, dealing with our morality and not lying to these sisters. And we went through it was really dope how when we went through the aspects of what these boys or what these young lions look for in black women, in a woman. And of course, them being young, a lot of them were talking about, the physical. Mm-hmm. But then one of my young lions said that he likes a girl who reminds him of the behaviors he sees in his mother. So right then and there, Tayla, I knew there's some hope left. There's some hope. I mean, and we were very, I know, when fellas
keep
get together,
it real.
we and I encourage that because I want these boys to understand that when we get together as men, there's a certain way we behave. There's a certain way we talk. And yes, we're going to strip away a lot of the maladies. But that's why we gracefully asked.
What ages are these?
Yeah, these are 14 to 18, but I got some younger and I got some older.
So I have a 14-year-old.
Bring them. Drop them in on us.
You know I kidnap kids, so. What if, let's say for instance, I'm a young man, and my mama dated nothing but black guys. I self-identify as black. Like, I don't know what it means to be white. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that feels like. I identify it as black. I think I'm black. And I want to be a part of this, I want to be a part. I want to have this conversation. I never, I know what my skin color is, but that's not what my soul is.
No. Again, we determine, or we'll sit down and through our vetting process, you can't just identify as black and not have at least a genetic material. And then the self acceptance, you have to want to also be black. So we know a lot of people who have the genetic material and by default identify themselves as black, but don't really want to be black.
Ben Carson,
there's tons of coons. Right, there's a whole coon cavalcade we could shout out and run down the line, and then we could talk about those also, your work among those people. That is, there are people who self-identify as black, accept the fact that they're black, have the genetic material, but then work against our best interests at every given time, at every given point.
Barack Obama, what would you say about him?
I say Barack Obama is a mulatto. I categorize Barack Obama as a mulatto.
Does his actions towards black people categorize himself as a mulatto?
No, ma'am. Particularly, and I know this is shocking to a lot of people, and Barack Obama you can easily make the case that Barack Obama has been one of the most violent presidents, particularly against black people, and particularly against the continent of Africa in existence.
You don't have to agree, but you definitely can call 617-282-0062. What do you say? Like, what's your name? Allah, Ali, whatever your name is. That sounds racist. You are looking at black people only for black people to encourage black people like that. Tayla, why would you have this racist on air?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. It's only when black people focus on ourselves exclusively and exercise a race-first ethic like every other ethnicity on earth does. The thing is with me is that I'm telling you I'm doing it. White folks particularly they like to have this veneer of inclusion and inclusionary facade. But then their practice, again, not what you say. What is it that you're doing?
I'm doing nothing. Nepotism. My nephew needed a job. I wasn't thinking about you.
Right. So then we should be able to see at some point in your track record some movement, some effort to help those less fortunate than you. If you're so fortunate, if you can pass on anything to those after you, then okay. So where is your love of our people? And that has to come across in your actions. The shirt, the I Love Black People T-shirt. White folks have approached me, and oh, that's very interesting. Your shirt, yeah, you like that, right? Yeah, you think how I get downshifted to the white boy, and so that's very interesting. And wow, this one white woman told me if she wore that shirt, if she wore a shirt that says "I love white people," that she would be looked at as racist. I said, well, you know what? I wear shirts that say "I love white people" all the time, but
it's called
Polo, it's called Gucci, it's called Michael Kors, it's called Louis Vuitton. So I don't really.
I got you.
But you get the point. So and at that point she wanted to stop the conversation. Now I understand. It's not about anger. It's about indifference with me. It's about the love of my people and not really concerned with what other people are doing. I'm focused on my people.
Week 4.
So
did we skip week 3?
No, ma'am. So week 3, actually 2 and 3 are the same. There's two subjects that go 2 weeks. And so week 4.
Call on line 1. I acknowledge you. Just hold on for me, baby. Just hold on right there. Call on line 1. Go ahead.
So week 4 is is education the new God? I'm sorry, entertainment the new God. Mm-hmm. Of course, Tayla, you know, movies, music, BET Awards just went by and was another cavalcade of what is the worst in the messages being sent to our children who do not have much of the, like as Dr. DeGroote would say, the cognitive dissonance, the cognitive ability to sift through what is being thrown at them, and then be able to say, well, what is our role in this? Black people. Hip hop, of course, is a lot of what we deal with: movies, television shows, and now with the advent of social media and the internet, which is a form of entertainment, sports. Mm-hmm. So we go through the gambit on all the things that, since so many of our children are being pushed to that as a livelihood, we talk about the most prominent, quote unquote, prominent black people in our society. 95% of them are entertainers. Mm. So we have to understand why that is. Week 5, we go into education, and we start to break down the educational paradigm and how public education got started, and how that was based in racism, white supremacy. From the point of desegregation, and how segregation really, I would say integration, is one of the worst things ever for black folks. Worst things ever to happen for black folks. Example, in schools. When they desegregated schools, yes, the students went to white schools and became part of the student body. But what happened to the black teachers? Many of the black teachers were left behind. Many of the black teachers who had degrees and had expertise were forced to become janitors in white schools because they weren't allowing them in the classroom. So then you essentially build a fence around a stage to do what Dr. John Henry Clark has said: the Europeans' greatest conquest was the conquest of the African mind. So you basically hand that over in integration, in pushing our children to go to schools taught by white folks.
What do you say to people that? Cause I have white listeners.
Yes, very nice.
And what do you say to those that are listening that it's just like, this is perpetuated racism? Like, how is this any different than a white man talking about, his nepotism or his ability to, maintain his wealth? Like, this is not helping society.
I would woefully disagree. I would disagree, and I would say that they're probably looking at it through their, unrefined definition of racism. Who taught you the definition of racism? For most people, it was kind of given to them by osmosis. Almost you're just expected to know what it is, and no one has ever really went in and studied it. So that's why somebody like Dr. Wilson should be revered as a lifesaver, because without her and Dr. Neely Fuller's work, people like Dr. Amos Wilson, John Henry Clark again, and more contemporarily, people like Dr. Johnson and Mwalimu Barudi and the Irritated Genie, people like that. These people, what incentive do what most white people have to learn about what racism is, as it does not really affect them? They're not aggrieved by the manifestations of racism, white supremacy. They are beneficiaries of it. So for most of them, they don't feel any real urgency to learn about what it really is. And then, of course, after you learn, you do something about it. Then what are you doing about it? So that would be my answer.
Week 6.
Week 6. So we go into racism in sports, racism, white supremacy in sports. We go into the history of how sports came to be and how black folks have always been entertainment for the dominant society and white folks. So, and how through books like $40 Million Slaves by William Roden, how he breaks down a myriad of things, the demonization of, in particular, the black quarterback, and how for years capable black quarterbacks were taken out of that position because they would say that, well, black people don't have the ability to process that fast, the cognitive ability.
Hold on, this is a real thing?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. There are...
So what were we, just, like, hold on.
Yeah. But we know, Tayla, the reason why that black people, black athletes were pushed out or encouraged to pursue other positions on the football field wasn't because of their ability,
so
cognitive or otherwise.
I don't know much about sports,
sure.
But I'm not understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So the quarterback is a Tom Brady.
Yes, ma'am.
We used to be quarterbacks, and now we're less likely to be quarterbacks because...
No, ma'am. Throughout I would say the evolution of and the popularity growth of football.
Okay.
And then as it becomes an industry, that's what it is now. Millions and millions of dollars. Billions.
Yeah,
billions.
Yeah.
But
and
for the industry.
Organization.
But millions for the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Much like in baseball, most of the time pitchers command the greatest salaries. In football, it is undoubtedly the quarterback.
Okay.
That's one of the major reasons why black people were historically pushed out of that position and then make up ridiculous claims is that the African cannot process mentally, do not have the mental faculties to operate and succeed and excel in the quarterback position. But we know one of the other reasons why that was is because it's a leadership position. They didn't want white players on the team, particularly on offense, looking at a black man as one and taking orders from a black man and then looking at them as the face of a franchise.
Is there any black name that I would know as a quarterback?
Michael Vick is probably the one you have to know.
And that's why they demonized him so bad.
And also because of historically, the Europeans' relationship with the canine. And how
letting dogs kiss them in the mouth.
Yeah,
That's so nasty.
it is to us because we come from a different cultural paradigm that is acceptable for them. We have to recognize one of the things that is patently false. It's this ethic that the European educational system keeps pushing, is that we're all the same, and we are most definitely not.
Okay, so aside from Michael Vick,
right now Cam Newton, you probably know who Cam Newton is.
Cam Newton played for Alabama.
No, he went to Auburn. He went to Florida first, but in the same state.
Yeah.
In the same state. Cam Newton, who is someone who I had an affinity for, but I recognize as of recently, I think he's become complicit in the effort to help effeminize black men.
With the attire.
A lot of the attire, a lot of the fashion choices are
maybe he just needs
more than questionable. But I am in awe of his athletic acumen.
Are those the only two that I would know that listeners would
that
know?
are probably most popular that are black?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. And Michael Vick's out the game now. So Cam Newton, I don't count Colin Kaepernick as black, but you may, or other people may.
Isn't he the same as Obama?
Yeah.
Isn't he a mulatto?
Yes, he has a white mother.
Does he? He has the genetic makeup.
Right. But John Henry Clark said, well, again, we have to talk about their actions and their behavior.
You don't think Colin Kaepernick has been out here being demonized, can't get a job for standing up and saying, I love black people?
I think there are some.
Even his mama put him on blast, was talking trash about him on Twitter. How could you do this to your people?
When we dig a little deeper, what concerns me is Colin Kaepernick's association with an organization like Open Society, which is a George Soros-funded organization, which Jesse Williams, remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what happened to him? It's like he's also a member. In fact, I want to say he's chair.
Open Society.
Open Society. Anybody can Google it. Open Society. Again, supposed to be like an organization to help underprivileged people of color and all that stuff. But they're getting their money from a torrid white supremacist at George Soros.
So Open Society sounded to me, I thought you were going to say, like, he supports gays.
He does.
That's what it sounds like.
He does.
Open Society.
No, he does, though. I mean, if you want to talk about that, he does. In fact, he and Cam Newton did a public service announcement talking about Michael Sam, who was going to be
the first
openly,
yeah.
right, but wasn't good enough as an athlete to get a permanent roster spot. But it's just interesting to me how they chose those two, Cam Newton and Colin Kaepernick.
So I didn't realize can you come back? Because we had to talk an hour and we only on
I was looking forward to the phone call. Is that person still there?
No, I kept him on hold. So
I'm sorry.
Got mad at me. I wanted to hear you though. Like, I wanted to hear what you had to say
about
everything.
Yeah.
Because I see you out here. I see your movements.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to link you with Tracy Snake Charmer Elves on Facebook. She just recently, yesterday, posted about what men out here are the OGs of our community, who out here teaching the young men, who are out here keeping them in line. Because when you talk to a lot of like the men of your era, they're like, yo, the OG was like, take your ass to school, put that cigarette down. What are you doing with that girl? Like keeping them, even if you didn't have a daddy at home, or even if you did have a daddy at home, you had an OG on the corner to tell you right from wrong. And she pulled out 202 men yesterday. In one day, that was just like, listen, I'll be an OG. And that's like, if you ever need mentors, I don't know how she got 202 black men to say, I'll mentor a black boy. But, I think it's necessary for our young boys to have somebody a role model that they can ask questions and, have some type of stability. Not somebody's going to be like, yeah, go out there and do this to the girls and, this is how you run the streets. But somebody to teach them the difference between right and wrong, especially when we got daddies out here that aren't doing their job. We have daddies out here that are not in the house. We have daddies out here that would rather throw $10,000 at a baby mama and say deuces. Like, we are young men, and even myself, I have a son. He has a great relationship with his father, but he still spends more time with his mother, and he's not getting, at 14 years old, he needs that, yes.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And you're right. And, again, we are in the service of black people, in the black family, and of course the black woman, to help these boys make the commitment at the foundation. And we just talked about this. When they make their choice of black women, do your best to make one based on your value system, and at the core of the value system has to be the love of our people. I think that's one of our major things where we go wrong, Taylor. It's not sexy to do what I do. It's not sexy.
You crazy.
Yeah, no, listen.
You're listening right now like, yo, Taylor, is he single?
It's not sexy to do what I do. It's not sexy to be, I guarantee you, you're going to get as many, like you were saying, people who feel like I'm being divisive, as opposed to being galvanizing for my people. And even people who may not agree still have to see the value in what I'm doing for my people, because as we get stronger, all people get stronger. All people benefit from the African presence. You don't see black kids copying white kids, but you see white kids dabbing all over the place. Why is that?
On national television, right, when their daddy is being sworn in. We understand, we're looked at as